What is up, gamers? We're here for our draft analysis for Season 2 of the SPC, the Sky Pillar Championship. Now, you may remember this league. We participated in Season 1, we won the championship Season 1, and we're back to try and make it two-time champion of the SPC. And I'm copying a bunch of people's style of draft analysis that I've seen recently. Just because I was too lazy to make a full slideshow, and so I just put all the Pokemon on one screen. But yeah, this is the team we drafted, and I'm going to talk about kind of just my thought process, what I was thinking of each pick, and just how I think the team's going to work in general. So our first pick was Zygarde. We were like the 13th pick or so we were not going to get any of the super broken Pokemon. But Zygarde's been a Pokemon I've really wanted to use for a while now. Just because I've used Zygarde 10% in quite a few leagues and I've really enjoyed it. And I wanted to try out 50% just because it's got a couple more of those sets, like the sub-toxic sets that you can get away with because you only need to run 1,000 arrows pretty much every single week on it offensively. And so I'm really excited to use it, but it is something that I think is going to be a new experience for me. Not sure how it's going to go, but I'm really excited to try it out. So the second pick that I got was Heatran. I figured the one thing that you really want to go with Zygarde is an Ice Resist and a Fairy Resist, and I picked up the best of both of those in one Pokemon with Heatran. I really like that it's a 4x Ice Resist and a 4x Fairy Resist. I think it pairs super well with Zygarde. We'll have to address the ground weakness later on in the draft, but we do get to that at some point. But I do think Heatran's another really cool Pokemon that I've never used before. I think it is my most fought Pokemon on the Draft League site. I fight this thing all the time for some reason, but I've never actually drafted it, and it's a Pokemon that I feel like after this long I should probably draft it at some point. It is another Pokemon that is, really good at those sub-toxic sets, and it is a bit of an issue in just the regard that this league does have an item clause, and I've already picked two Pokemon that really appreciate having leftovers in general, just for the passive recovery, because they don't get reliable recovery, and they're both pretty bulky Pokemon overall. But we'll figure it out. It shouldn't be too big of an issue, hopefully. And our third top tier Pokemon, I think I got 3 S tiers, I think, is Torn T. And Torn T is a Pokemon that I've never really done well with. I've drafted it once, I believe, and I hated it, but I figured I'd give it a second shot because I really wanted a ground resist or a ground immunity with Heatran on the team, and I think it pairs quite well with both Zygarde and Heatran. It's the only one of the 3 with momentum. It's really nice for that. It gets knockoff, which is really nice, and I'm probably going to be using Torn as more of a utility mon most weeks, just because it is so good at that. It's also a regenerator Pokemon, which is awesome, because regen can be super annoying for teams to deal with if they don't have ways to hit Torn really hard. It's kind of difficult to chip down. It's also, if you look, the only Pokemon that I drafted that is weak to rocks, and so pretty much any week that I do feel like rocks are a high possibility, I can put boots on it and not have to worry about the item clause with it. It does run sets like Nasty Plot and such. It's not my favorite just because when you run that, you usually want to run stuff like Hurricane, and I hate using Hurricane. I'm more of an Air Slash guy, just because I hate low accuracy moves. But I do feel like it's another Pokemon that I haven't gotten to use as much as I could, and I have never been able to use it well, so I wanted to try it out. And if you notice on my first 3 picks, they're all Pokemon that I'm not comfortable with, and I'm really excited to try them out. I figured this is the chance to do that, because we already showed that we can win this league. And so I wanted to go out of my comfort zone and draft a whole bunch of Pokemon that I hadn't used before. And in that same vein is Riku, another Pokemon I've never drafted before. You know me, I usually like to draft Lantern as my electric type. Maybe if I'm drafting a high tier, I'd go for something like Koko, something that's really fast. But Riku does have good speed. I think it's like 110, 115 if I had to guess. I'm not certain. But it's quite fast. It is another Pokemon that really likes leftovers, which is unfortunate, and it's another ground weakness. But I really wanted something to break those bulky waters after drafting Zygarde and Heatran as my first 2 picks. And this was one of the best remaining electric types after the first 2 rounds. So I went with it. I I really like that it got Aura Sphere and Scald this generation. Scald can punish quite a few of the ground types that want to switch in on it, which is really nice. And hopefully it's just going to be a fun Pokemon to use. It is one of my faster Pokemon besides the Torn, so that's nice as well. It gives us a solid speed tier above 100. But I am curious to see how it goes this season. It's another Pokemon I see myself bringing Toxic on quite a bit. So if you're going to be facing me, I might recommend running stuff like Aromatherapy or Heal Bell. But yeah, I'm really excited to try out Raikou. It's not something that I'd ever say I've always tried to avoid it just because I don't feel like it's a Pokemon that fits my playstyle very well. But I am curious to try it out, and anything with Volt Switch, tends to fit me pretty well. I think the next highest tiered Pokemon we drafted was Slowbro, and Slowbro is another Pokemon I've never really gotten the chance to use. I love that it gets Teleport. I love that it's a super physically defensive wall, and it can take hits from most Pokemon that are physically offensive. Uh, I love Regenerator. I love Teleport. I feel like I usually draft Slowking between the two just because that's the one that Ryan loves, and he's convinced me that AV Slowking is a really good set. But I wanted to get a physically defensive Pokemon just because I thought that that was more of an issue with the team that I had, just overall. And I'm just really excited to try this Pokemon out because just spamming Scald and Teleport is really all it needs, in my opinion. So I'm really excited to try it. And hopefully it's a fun Pokemon. It's my first super defensive Pokemon. Like Torn and Heatran and Zygarde are all bulky offense, I'd say. Even Riku to some degree. But it's our first fully defensive Pokemon that I don't see myself bringing as a super offensive Pokemon more than once or twice in a season. The next Pokemon we got, I believe, is Drapeon, which is another ground weakness, which does mean we're stacking him up quite a bit at that point in the draft, with only Torn as our ground switch into 3 Pokemon that are weak to ground. But I did really need a grounded poison type. I didn't want to deal with that. And I wanted to grab one that can set Toxic Spikes itself. And Drapeon was a nice value pick. Wasn't super expensive, but it's knockoff Toxic Spikes. And that's really all I got it for. It's also nice to have a dark type just so that people can't just Calm Mind or stored power sets in front of us. We did have Slowbro and Heatran, so I wasn't too worried about that to begin with. But having a Psychic Immunity is always helpful to have as well. Drapeon's just a nice, reliable Pokemon, just from my experience. It is a Pokemon that I've drafted before, one of the few on this team that I've used, and I think I used it, at least average when I had it. So I am happy to have it. It's a Pokemon that can also use Black Sludge instead of Leftovers. I do want another Pokemon with passive recovery, which I think will be appreciated on this team as well. The other Pokemon in that tier that I picked up was Exploud. Exploud is just another one of those Pokemon that I've been looking at for a long time that I've always wanted to try out, because I think it's a Pokemon that looks super fun to use, but it's kind of hard to fit onto a team because it's not a bulky normal type, it's not a fast normal type, so it doesn't really fill any of the niches that you're looking for in a Pokemon. It's really just a Pokemon that you throw specs on, you click Boom Burst, and that's about it. But I think that's something that's super fun. That's why I love using Pokemon like Zydog, where it has one move that you're going to click every single time, and people know it. I think Exploud is the exact same, and I think those are Pokemon that I just enjoy using a lot more than other people. So I am excited to finally pick this thing up as well. Next up is the Pokemon that I've drafted the most on this team. It's Girder. Girder, I think, is super reliable as a low-tier fighting type. It's a defog Pokemon, which helps because I only had one other defogger at this point, and it was Torn. And I love drafting Girder. It's just a really good low-tier pick. Mach Punch with, Iron Fist or Guts is super nice. It's quite bulky. It can run bulk up sets, bulk up Drain Punch type stuff. And I just really like to use it. It's a nice dark type switch in, which is something that I feel like I kind of needed just having Slowbro on the team. And I just really enjoy using Girder. It's a Pokemon I bring more than I should probably, but it always feels like it has a pretty solid matchup. It's really just a budget Conkeldurr, but it does nearly as well as Conkeldurr in most matchups anyways. The next pick that I had was Thwackey. I felt like a Pokemon that can mitigate earthquake damage is really helpful for this team because I did have so many ground weaknesses and not a lot of ways to beat ground types. But I do enjoy using Thwackey. I've drafted it a couple times at this point, I believe. And I think it's just really nice having that grassy terrain with this team specifically because Heatran, Slowbro, Zygarde, Riku all love grassy terrain because my team does lack a lot of immediate recovery, but it's a lot of Pokemon that love passive recovery with this bulky offense type of team. And so I think Thwackey will end up coming to quite a few battles just because grassy terrain is so nice, and I think that bulky waters are still kind of an issue for this team. And Thwackey is really nice at beating those with Grassy Glide. And my final pick, my 2-point mon, Mr. Mime. I actually drafted Mr. Mime in a tier 3 and below league, and I really enjoyed using it. Mr. Mime is just one of my favorite Pokemon in general, and so I just really enjoyed drafting it and trying to make it work. And I didn't have a fairy type, so I wanted to at least have one, just because any fairy is better than no fairy. And Mr. Mime is actually a Pokemon I can see myself bringing quite a few times just because it's got a good speed tier, it's got really good offensive presence, and it's just a fun Pokemon to use, honestly. I just enjoy using it. And the fact that it can't really hit Steel types super well, mixed with the fact that we have a Heatran and a Zygarde, I think complements Mr. Mime quite well. So I'm happy to have it. It'll be fun, hopefully. And it's actually our second soundproof Pokemon between Mr. Mime and X-Blood, which is, just a nice little coinky dink. But I think that's all I've got for the team analysis. I think that the strength of this team is consistent damage. Nothing on this team is super passive. And the big weaknesses on this team, I would say, are the ground weakness to some degree, the lack of hazard control just in general. I think my only hazards are Toxic Spikes on Drapeon and Stealth Rocks on Heatran, which, isn't very good. Heatran is a very reliable rock setter if I want it to be, so I'm not too worried about getting hazards up, and, with this team, it shouldn't be too big of an issue, but I also only have 2 forms of hazard removal, so that could be an issue this season. But at the same time, my team isn't very hazard weak, so I think it's alright in that regard. The other thing that I'm most worried about is definitely the item clause, I think, with this team, just because I do have so many Pokemon that really appreciate having leftovers, and I'm going to have to get creative with the items on some of these Pokemon, I think. But beyond that, really excited this season. We've got a bunch of really good coaches in the league. I am battling Ryan once again week 1 for the 1000th time. But I'm really excited to be battling all these coaches. We've gotten some new coaches that I really am excited to be battling, and a bunch of really good returning coaches as well. So I'm super excited for this season. It's going to be a good time. I don't expect to go undefeated again this season. Just the level of coaches mixed with this team that I am a little bit worried just because I have no experience with most of these Pokemon. But it's going to be a great season. Make sure you watch all the coaches' battles. And if you're still around, thanks for watching this one. But I think I'm going to leave it there. Bye, all.